"If you study poorly, I'll marry you to the first guy I see," Mom shouted to me.
Oh no, not this. I was only 13 years old. I wasn't ready to get married.
And even for the first guy she saw? I definitely didn't want to. Although I gotta admit, I didn't study well. I was bad with all my grades at school, except for art. Hello everyone, my name is Nina. I was born and raised in Texas. I never left our lovely state. In general, I like life here, but I don't really like my mother's strictness and her conservative views on life. The fact that my mother got married early, at the age of 16, at 17, my sister was born, and then me. My sister has long gone to a big city in the north and is now working there. She's already 24, but she doesn't want to get married either. Mom is pissed off. She says that a family must be built earlier, otherwise there's a risk of remaining an old maid. She dreamt about it all the time, but she knew my resistance and constantly threatened me that if I didn't study, she'd make me marry. I studied even worse after hearing those words. That day, there was an important exam at school. I had to study, but I got so carried away with drawing that instead of learning, I painted half of my notebook. To prevent my mother from flying off the handle, I hid it from her, said that I was ready for the exam and went to school with an empty head. But you can't fool the teacher. I earned the worst score and immediately remembered my mother's words. I imagined a mustachioed, bearded, red-haired old man walking down the street. My mother would grab his hand and push me down the aisle with him. Damn! I had no choice. I had to lie to my mother about my grades. She was very happy and cooked my favorite dinner. Then she gave me some pocket money and sent me for a walk with my friends. A couple of weeks later, at school, we were given the task of writing an essay, and of course, I sat down in front of the notebook, and instead of writing, I got drawing. Then I wanted to sleep, and again, I did nothing. Arriving at school the next day, I'd gotten another fat minus, and lying to my mother, I said I got an A, forging the teacher's handwriting. What a smart girl you are! So your sister chose a big city. In the end, she works there like hell. But you'll become a big person. You'll manage other people and earn good money.
What about your ideas of family life?
Nobody said you won't get married, but you can make a career as well. After all, you need strength and time, and when you have children, neither one nor the other remains.
Mom, were you serious when you said I'd have to marry the first person you saw?
Well, yes, it always works like that. Me, my mom, and my sisters, we lived normally for a while, but, you have to get married. Mom pulled out another sum of money and gave it to me, and then freed me from my household chores and ordered me to take a walk and rest. This time, I wasn't so excited anymore. I felt terrible with shame, but without saying anything, I left the house. How much longer could I fool her like this? What if I confessed? Images kept flooding my head of being dressed in a rag at the altar with a red-haired, bearded old man. Grimacing, I decided I just wouldn't think about it yet. Maybe everything would sort itself out. After my lessons, I packed my things, but our homeroom teacher, Mrs. Williams, approached me. She asked why my grades were getting even worse. I couldn't justify it. Then she said that my report card was already on the way to my house.
What did you say?
I sent your report card to your mother via Mrs. Folks. She's just passing by your house. If your mum wants, let her come in and we'll discuss your future.
My future?
Without waiting for an answer, I rushed home as fast as I could in order to have time to destroy the book with my grades.
Mom! Mother, where are you? Mom!
I screamed as I ran into the house like a crazy person. In the living room sat an old red-haired man with a beard. He sat with perfectly ironed trousers, looking at me with an appraising look and nodding his head. And then it broke to me.
Get out! Get out of here immediately! You're disgusting!
You will never marry me. So what if I flunked all my exams and faked my grades? Not like school comes first. Who cares about grades after high school anyway? No, I'll never marry a smelly old man like you! I yelled. Then there was the sound of broken crockery. My mother stood in the doorway of the kitchen and looked at me dumbfounded. I proudly raised my head and was not going to admit defeat. A minute later, Mrs. Folks was heard in the street. She was calling my mother, and I realized with horror that my mother had not yet seen my report card.
Oh, Mom, what are you doing here?
What exams were you talking about? The ones where you got A's, right?
Mom, I'll explain everything, please.
Mom and I ran around the sofa where the old man was sitting. Mom chased me, hitting me with a towel, and I ran away trying to justify myself. Mom, it's your own fault. I thought you wanted to marry me to him. Are you crazy? It's an art teacher. I invited him because I found your drawings. I thought you might like it if I hired you an art teacher. Where did you even get that nonsense? Well, in general, guys, what I took into account from the story is that lying is never good. But lying to your mother is even worse. Yes, by the way, I've been under house arrest for 2 months. But on the other hand, I am studying art, which I really, really enjoy. Hi everyone, I'm Lillian. Do you know what it's like to be a doll? How it is to pretend to be her in order to reveal the dirty secrets of others? What if those people were close to you? Once you try, you'll instantly learn everything about them. In the same way, I figured out the secret of my stepsister, Betty. Only later, it turned out it wasn't her secret, but mine. To be honest, I don't remember when Betty and I became sisters. Her father married my mother. In addition, I had a memory gap in my head. It seems like I had an accident, but no one talks about that period, so I stopped digging. I just continue to live and do what I love. I played the guitar. I love to do it. One day I got a great idea. To play the guitar and earn money for children from our orphanage. We had a snowy owl doll in our garage for a long time. It wasn't used, but it wasn't thrown away either. Once I took it out, cleaned it, and dragged it to the center, got up with the guitar and began to play and sing songs, the owl doll became my assistant. Every year before Christmas, I earned good money, about $5,000 to $7,000, and gave everything to that center. The kids were happy, and so am I. However, last year, I discovered there wasn't enough money. A box was installed next to the owl. I got used to the fact that no one touched either the owl or the money because everyone knew that they were given to children for the holidays. And then there was some unscrupulous dude. To find out who this thief was, I climbed inside the owl and pretended to be a doll. After standing for a couple of cold hours, I nonetheless saw who was stealing the money and couldn't believe that Betty would fall to such a level. I didn't do anything when she pulled out my bucks. The next day after following her, I saw that she was mercilessly spending the money I had earned. I told my mother about everything, demanded punishment or at least a conversation with Betty and my stepfather, but my mother would not believe me. This was to be expected. Then I invited her to stay with me in the evening. In the afternoon, having earned somewhere around $700, I closed the box and pretended to go home. Then I quietly hid in the owl, and my mother was sitting nearby. An hour later, the thief came. But you won't believe it. It wasn't Betty, but a dude I didn't know. I was shocked. Of course, I took the money back as soon as I moved in the suit. The kid fell and dumped, leaving the loot. However, I was lectured for my mother for my baseless accusations. But I promised myself to bring that thief to light. Mom left and I slowly walked, but in the middle of the street, someone attacked me and pressed me against the wall. It was her. You thought of exposing me. You think I don't know that you were following me? Then why the hell were you taking my money? This is the least you can give me. What are you talking about? I don't owe you anything. You're wrong. You stole my life, you bitch! Are you kidding? Are you drunk? Betty was furious. She rarely behaved like this, but still, there were some times. I could never understand her, what she wanted from me, and why she hated me so much. It was Christmas time, and I didn't have time to earn enough money, so I went to extreme measures and stole Betty's gold watch and pawned it. The money was then taken to the center. On the way home, I already imagined her face, but I had an argument. Her theft. I thought so hard about what I was going to say, I almost got hit by a car. I jumped to the side of the road and fell into the snow. Immediately, my head cracked at the seams. Memories flooded in a frosty stream over my skin directly into my brain. They were so real that I couldn't hold back my tears. Then I ran home. I wanted to find Betty, but she was nowhere to be found. Night was coming. Her phone was disabled. My parents were in a light panic. They searched all around, but she was nowhere to be found. And then it dawned on me. I know where she is. I ran to look for the place where the biggest accident happened, due to which I lost my memory. Not far from the orphanage center. There was no one there. I sat down next to my owl and cried. It's all my fault. I'm sorry, Betty. I ran out into the road in the stupid owl costume and didn't see the car coming. My guitar teacher, Mrs. Dawes, she swerved off the road so as not to hit me, and the car crashed. Every word was difficult for me, and I heard Betty crying from the owl. I took off the doll's head and saw my half-sister crying bitterly. I apologized to her 100,000 more times, and our parents stood side by side. A few years ago, I started playing with the guys from the center. My mother worked there as a teacher for some time. The ball flew out of the territory directly onto the road. I ran after it in the suit and didn't see the car driven by my guitar teacher. She was the one who taught me how to play. She turned the steering wheel to the side and the car flew over the bridge. That was Betty's mother. From fear, I fell into a coma. Miraculously, I got out of it after 1.5 years. During this time, my mother and Betty's father managed to fall in love with each other. My sister was hurt the most. She remembers everything and lived through it, unlike me. Now I have a completely different attitude towards her. Now I don't dare to hate her anymore. Now we sit together in the snow, bawling and hugging. It was the first Christmas that made me want to start all over again with a clean slate.